Hey everyone, it's Sammy from Push Square, and I wanted to make yet another Spider-Man video talking specifically about combat this time from my 2-hour demo late last month. So I'll get straight into it. Do remember to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and with all that said, let's talk about the fighting in Marvel's Spider-Man on PS4. So I think Batman Arkham Asylum was such a gigantic success that we all saw tons of famous franchises copying its combat mechanics to some extent. You know, whether it was Assassin's Creed, it had elements of it, Sleeping Dogs. There are loads of games that basically borrowed from Rocksteady, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 on the PlayStation 4 was actually one of those games. So I wanted to talk about how Insomniac's new release compares, and I feel after playing a few hours of the game that I'm well placed to discuss that. So regardless of what the developer actually says, there are definitely similarities between Marvel's Spider-Man and the Batman Arkham games. So Spider-Man's iconic spider sense ability makes him a perfect fit for counterattacks, and you're going to see the famous sort of heat waves from the comic books emanating from the hero's head regularly, and what you have to do when you see that is hit the circle button in order to get out of the way. Now, from what I've seen of the game so far, there are a lot of goons who are heavily armed in this game with rocket launchers or machine guns and stuff like that, so you're going to find yourself dodging a lot of firepower in addition to the usual sort of melee combat attacks that some goons also have. Now, as you know, the Caped Crusader is incredibly mobile in the Batman Arkham games, but Spider-Man is even more so, and he'll flip and somersault his way around the battlefield, and in a way, in my eyes, it makes more sense in this game, given the inherent athleticism of the web slinger. Now, webs do vary things up quite a lot from Batman, as you can kind of stun your enemies by webbing them up, and then you can go in and attack them. And what you can also do is you can kind of web sling towards enemies. So if you hit the triangle button, you'll basically close the gap between Spider-Man and an enemy, which will allow you to get in close and kind of pummel them. Now, you can also actually launch enemies into the air, and this feels a little bit like Devil May Cry. So if you hold down the attack button, you'll lift them into the air, and you can then juggle them like you're playing a kind of Marvel vs. Capcom game. The really neat thing is that there's a lot of experimentation available, so you can just straight up juggle enemies in the air by punching and kicking them, or if you hit the triangle button, you'll web them up and then you can kind of slam them back down, or you can even actually stick them to walls or the ground. So there's a lot you can do, and the game seems to encourage you exploring all of its options and experimenting with your combat. Now, one thing that's been talked about a lot prior to release is the contextual combat options, which will depend heavily on the environment. So wherever you fight, you're going to find things lying around, whether it's tyres, plants, bits of shrapnel, car doors, things like that. And these will show up on the screen, and you can web them and then throw them at enemies. And these serve as kind of finishers, or they can counter an attack, you know, kind of stop an enemy from attacking you if you're in a pinch or you're in trouble. And it's also worth pointing out that you can obviously swing to different surfaces while you're fighting, so you can get out of the way of difficult situations very quickly by sort of webbing yourself to a perch and then jumping back down and stuff like that. While I didn't get to see many gadgets in my playthrough, it's clear that gadgets are going to play a big part in this game, and it seems like you're going to have lots of different options there to vary up your attacks as well. So what I wanted to say in this video is that the combat is like Batman Arkham. There's no getting away from it, but it's definitely not identical. Spider-Man's athleticism makes his fighting style faster and more frenetic than even Batman in those games, and the webs put a different spin on the traditional fisticuffs. I really liked the combat from what I saw, and one thing that really impressed me is that throughout the first 2 hours of the game, Insomniac keeps introducing different enemies that require different tactics. So without spoiling too much, there's guys with rocket launchers and you have to dodge the rockets. There's dudes with shields and you have to kind of knock the shield away from them and then attack them from behind and stuff like that. It's nothing you haven't really seen before, but if the game can keep introducing interesting new enemies like that and keep it varied throughout its full running time, then you're going to have a lot of fun with the combat, I think, especially when they start mixing and matching different types of enemies to give you new things to think about and new challenges to overcome. But let me know what you think in the comment section below. Are you excited to try out Spider-Man PS4's combat system? Are you a fan of the Batman Arkham's fighting style, or do you actually prefer a different style of melee combat in your games? Let me know in the comment section below. Remember to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and as always, thank you so much for watching. Cheers.